Hi, I'm Janelle Evans, and I want to share some ideas with you about things you can do if you feel like you're having a midlife crisis. Why is it that people that appear to be so successful in their entire lives, from their careers to their marriages to their adult children who've launched and are thriving, can still experience feelings of regret and unhappiness and just overall sadness at midlife? I have been talking to a lot of people in the past couple of months about this experience that they're going through. And for a lot of people, they say, I've had more time as we've gone through this global pandemic together, just really getting in touch with, what is going on for me? Where am I in my life? And a lot of feelings have surfaced for people, which feels very, very natural, actually. But some of those feelings are quite negative. And I think because people have had more time, it's just right there. Looking in the mirror is a lot easier when you've got this kind of time on our hands. And people are feeling more depressed and unsettled and stuck and uncertain really about what's ahead for them. And a lot of people at midlife have been on a path of success, and they kind of had it all mapped out, and then they get to this place of accomplishing things, and then it's like, what's next, right? On top of the realization that maybe not everything is going in the direction that they want it to, or they're not as satisfied in certain parts of their life as others. So, the reality is, if you're 45 and over, you may have experienced to a certain degree some of these feelings if you feel like you are also having some kind of midlife crisis. Um, the truth is, a midlife crisis is not a medical diagnosis. But it's rather more like an emotional crisis that many of us experience when we realize that we're very much aging and that we also, have to face our mortality and sometimes disappointments in life about things that we haven't gotten to do. And of course, many other things. But feeling like we're having a midlife crisis just can be a time of less joy, less contentment, despite having many successes in our life, in our personal life and in our professional life. So it's kind of like, how can we have all this success and still have these feelings? But it is something that many, many people do experience. So I want to normalize it. And there are people who say they don't have a midlife crisis, and that's great. But based on economic studies, there are experts that believe that there is this natural dip, this natural sort of slump in our well-being at midlife. And it's actually identified as the U-shaped curve in life satisfaction and happiness in our life cycle. And in my research in preparing this video, Daniel Pink was someone that I've known, and he's the author of 10 best-selling books. You may know him. He was quoted in the nextavenue.org blog about the U-shaped curve. And I want to share with you the quote and three things that he says that we can all do to help ourselves if we're feeling like we're having some kind of midlife crisis. And here's the quote. He says, "We don't have the research to support what is often called a midlife crisis, but that there are similar experiences akin to a slight dip or slump in our individual happiness in midlife that happens across the world when people experience certain things like empty nesting or realize their level of professional success or lack thereof in their 50s. So while the severity of this dip in our feelings at midlife is not life-threatening, it can be a period of sustained sadness and personal adjustments that affect many things in our life, from being able to get a great night's sleep, to feeling productive at work, to impacting our relationships, being short-tempered, impacts our ability to think clearly so we can figure out what's next for us in our life. And Daniel Pink also suggests these three things that we can do to lift ourselves up out of a slump and deal with the midlife crisis, as we may be calling it, by doing these three things. So let me share those with you. He says, first, focus on your top 5 goals in life. He says, don't let too many goals or confusion or lack of being able to focus become a barrier that keeps you from figuring them out. It's just as important to know what you don't want as to know what you do want at midlife and beyond. And I think that is a great strategy. I'd also like to say, as a person who works with people who are trying to navigate midlife crisis and slumps, then I say go less. Don't take on more than three goals. So I want to add my opinion here, and I think he's so wise, and I love the fact he's even talking about this to focus on your top five goals, but maybe consider going with your top three. People often try to take on too much, and then they become demotivated because they're not able to make progress. Because we're talking about making some big shifts with some of the things that people do want to change when they realize they're kind of at the midpoint of their life. The second thing that Dan Peek suggests is to stop the comparison game. And I love this. We do this, and I don't know why we do it, but we do. We compare our lives to the lives of other people, sometimes people we know, and sometimes people we read about in People magazine. I mean, it's crazy. We need to ignore what other people are doing because everybody's situation is unique. And a lot of times, what you see on the outside of a person's life is very different than what the reality is on the inside. And we can think that they somehow have unlocked it all and figured it out. And it might be a very different story in reality. We just do ourselves a huge disservice when we compare ourselves to other people. You know, comparison is the thief of joy. And the third thing that Daniel Pink says is get a mentor. Find someone more experienced and older who's already navigated phases of life that you have yet to experience, right? We're never too old, he says, to have a mentor, and I totally agree. And someone that we trust and someone who can guide us because they've gone before us. They have that wisdom. And another expert, Jonathan Rauch, Rauch, he's the author of The Happiness Curve. He believes that if we figure out ways to deal with this dip in our well-being, this dip in our happiness at midlife, and if we can begin to accept it as part of the human experience, we might end up happier than ever in the future. I like his attitude. So let me share with you three things that he suggests that we can do if you think you're dealing with a midlife crisis. He says, consider these things. Number one, don't berate yourself. If you're going through midlife difficulties, realize that it's almost a universal experience. Let's normalize this, right? And most people have a midlife slump to certain degrees. Again, there will be people that tell you they do not have this, and that's okay. So, but don't treat yourself like you're some kind of failure if you are experiencing it, right? For feeling the way you do, because that kind of negative mindset will not serve you. It will not help you move through it. It'll only make things worse. The second thing that Jonathan suggests is to understand what you can change and what you can't. Because there's a reality here at midlife we have to come to terms with, that there are some things that you can radically modify and there are things that you cannot. So focus on those things that you can change and that you might be able to renegotiate or refine in some way. Like, and again, with any change, and I think most behavioral experts would share this, starting small is smart, right? Don't overwhelm yourself with whatever change you want to make. And over time, by taking one step at a time, you know, you can make those transformations that you want to make in your life. So you can feel happier, you can feel more aligned with your values and your purpose. The third suggestion from Jonathan Rauch is to focus on being present. And this is something I always really reinforce with my clients, because if we're not present in our lives, we don't even know what to change to be happier. And sometimes it's right there, but we're so busy, we haven't taken time to really explore it. So when we focus on the past, you know, we can get depressed. When we focus on the future, we can get more anxious. So the idea here is to focus on the present moment so we can really tune in to what's our heart's desire. So you can really know what's working, what's not working, what might be a direction for me to go, what might be something for me to try that will really bring me more joy, contentment, and fulfillment that I'm not feeling right now. So if we can observe what's really going on for ourselves and have that self-awareness by pausing, having some kind of stillness practice like meditation or yoga or something that really grounds us, we can respond so much better to what it is that we want to change than to try to make those kinds of decisions in some kind of agitated emotional state or very depressed state. So choosing to be present allows us to be in a more neutral emotional state where we can have better discernment so we can make better decisions about our future and ultimately what we want to experience. So I've just shared from those two experts 6 strategies for you to consider if you think you are having some kind of midlife crisis or you're just not feeling the way you want to feel and you want to make some changes. So think about which of those strategies might be a good fit for you. You can try them all or you can try a couple. And again, whatever you try, start small and over time you can make those changes. Baby steps. And I want to say too, now, while midlife doesn't necessarily mark the beginning of some kind of decline in your life, please don't ignore any new mental or physical symptoms that you may be experiencing. In the United States, I know that our suicide rate is up, our depression rate, people who say that they are experiencing depression is like 40% since we've had the global pandemic that began in March of 2020. So if you're having feelings of depression for weeks on end, please contact someone and let a mental health counselor know who might really be beneficial to you. And if you're experiencing any new physical symptoms, please contact your doctor so that you can just rule out, anything that might require immediate attention. So, but let me share some good news. Deciding to deal with what feels maybe like a midlife crisis can be such an opportunity for you, an opportunity to pause and reflect and evaluate your life. What's really going on? This is it. We don't get another one, right? What's really going on? So you can take action to close the gap between where you are right now, the status quo, and where you want to be in your future. It's an adventure. And this is what I tell all of my clients. And it's all about how our mindset is in place to take this on. And you might also consider working with someone like myself who specializes in helping people make big changes, particularly at midlife and beyond. There's certainly many things that we can do in our life on our own, but sometimes at midlife, it can be overwhelming to try to navigate lots of changes. Sometimes people are changing their careers while getting divorced, while moving, while trying to reinvent their professional identity, while going back to school to get another degree. I mean, so many changes sometimes that we're going through. It can be very challenging to do all of that successfully on your own. And in my work with clients, I'm able to help them develop those skills and those strategies that they need to do all of those things in order to have the massive confidence they need to keep moving forward, to do the deep work so that they know they were going to have more joy and fulfillment and freedom from worries in their future. And I think that's what we all want, right? At the end of the day. So if you're feeling less fulfilled, if you're feeling like, you're struggling in some way to make progress, to figure out what's next, please reach out to me. My contact information is here on my website if you're watching it, or on the YouTube if you're watching it there. And we can talk and at a minimum, figure out some next step for you that is going to put you on the path so that you can have the life that you want starting tomorrow and for years to come. Thank you.